I am integrating the Austrian Social Forum as well as a network called Spring 2, Network Against Right, Far-Right, Extremism, which has been founded in 2005 in Prague. That's perhaps it would be better if you translate that, because we might as well disturb each other. Extremism and populism has been created in the framework of the European Social Forum, because we all feel the big danger that the far right is dominating, as we thought in 2009, especially in Eastern European countries. Now we see that it's unfortunately not only in Eastern European countries, but also in countries of the European Union, like France or like Austria, where I come from, and others. In this framework, we developed a series of initiatives where especially important always was the contribution of the networks and the representatives of Ukraine. They participated. I think even they were the strongest and the more numerous to participate in this common struggle against the far right. At a certain moment, it happened what you know. But before I want to continue, I will ask you a series of practical questions, like, can I be sure that everybody around the table understands English? Yes? Okay. And can I be sure that not everybody around the table understands Russian? You don't. You understand. Who understands Russian? Please. Oh, you are unfortunately a minority. So we will have a consecutive translation, because when we asked for a translation from Russian into English, the organizers of the World Social Forum, they were looking around, and it was not possible to get anybody who would translate from the Social Forum. But one of the main participants of this dialogue, Mrs. Nadia Shevchenko, is a very good, I say, professional interpreter, and has been so nice to do this job. Coming back to the issue, when the conflict broke out in so-called Maidan movement, as everybody knows, we went to Ukraine from different parts of Eastern Europe, including, and when I say Eastern Europe, we have this concept of the European Social Forum, where Europe for us is, of course, not just the European Union, but it includes also, and this is very important for our position, our political position, it includes Russia. Russia is part of Europe. Since the very beginning of the World Social Forum, this is our geopolitical concept. You might discuss it, but this has been. I say that because then we focused on what was going on in Maidan and in the As a matter of fact, some of those who are going to speak now have been actively participating in the Maidan movement, which was a grassroots movement with the horizon of much of the same values that we share in the social forum process, like participatory democracy, like respect for self-determination of the people, and so on. Unfortunately, other powers intervened. It's not my place now to analyze the past. Perhaps some of the speakers are going to do that. I only want to tell you what the steps were in our initiative on Ukraine. One of the next steps was to go within a delegation of peace movement to Ukraine and to the Donbass, to Donetsk and to Kiev in around July, just when the war was breaking out. And we found it incredible that this war is happening when what is reflected also in this paper and the statement everyone can take, when in reality there was no desire for neither the one nor the other part to break off the war within the population, within Ukraine. And there the conception of the idea was born, which brought us together today. The idea is to look at Eastern and Western Ukraine. Perhaps this is not the correct determination, but everybody knows what I mean. To look at that from point of view of a leftist perspective, to engage in a dialogue on both sides who have as a common denominator being anti-oligarchic and anti-imperialist from any side of the political spectrum. And it was not easy to get this dialogue set. We had many different tribes. For instance, in my country, in Austria, where we did other dialogues, peace dialogues, it was not possible. Why? Because from the Donbass area, the Austrian government would not give any visas, because they were afraid that by giving visas they would break the rule of the European Union, that they would recognize the Donbass area as an independent state, although we never asked them to do that. There was a slight opening to do this dialogue in Moldavia. The president at a certain moment guaranteed that he would allow people from both sides to join there. But then the political situation within Moldavia became a little complicated, and the process got stuck. So finally, we said, well, let's start, even on a very small level. Let's start in the World Social Forum in Tunis. And here we are. Unfortunately, we are not complete. It was meant that two persons from Donbass would come, and besides, I will present it to him, Mr. Smitalin, also Mrs. Jana Manjurova. unfortunately, that is also very significant. The passport, which was in sway since 2 or 3 weeks by DHL, got intercepted by the Ukrainian authorities, and we still were 2 days ago hoping we could get her passport out of it so that she can travel to Tunis, and it was not possible. So in spite of all these difficulties, I would say, let's start. And let's start in the first round. We have thought only among Ukrainians who came here and already discussed previously, who sort of drafted a common statement here even, this team of panel discussions consists of the following persons. To my left, Mr. Alexander Smekali, if somebody wants to have it. Alexander Smekali is a very notable trade unionist, plainly integrated also in the actions and in the defense and in the resistance and whatever you say of this part of Ukraine. You are from Donetsk? Excuse me. You are from Lugansk. Yes, Mrs. Milberg, she could not come, was from Donetsk. I want to introduce to you also Mrs. Nadia Shevchenko, who was one of those who most actively participated in the Maidan movement. Amongst others, this is not her only job, as a journalist and being part of a project which is called Spilno Television, which was always the one you see on the screens of the Maidan Square, and which now tries to realize a project called Building Bridges. Mrs. Nina Podolska, she is a director of the main, of one of the main social science institutes in Kiev, and who has been involved also from the very beginning on in the Prague Spring II movement and other political activities, which she certainly is going to refer about. And last but not least, Mr. Where is he? Sachar.
Yeah, that's me.
Sachar Popovich. He is, on the one hand, also part of the same institute as Mrs. Podolska, but he also has made a tremendous effort, which has been little reflected into the outside and in the press, to found, you can say, a new party, a new leftist party in Ukraine, which somehow reflects all the different points of view which we are discussing here. Excuse me of having been a little bit long, but it was important that you get to know that this is not just another discussion around that. It is really, in some way, a historic moment where for the first time civil society of those two parts in conflict are engaged. I would would say the rules of the game are the rules of the social forum, there is no majority vote. It is a participatory way where we try to reach a consensus, and sometimes we cannot reach consensus, so we leave that out. And we proceed and respecting every position which is represented here. After this round, which will take about, let's say, 1 hour, perhaps a little more. After this round, we will proceed to a second round, which will include some of the speakers we wanted to pronounce themselves on the results of the first round, if there are any results on the first round. And here I want to introduce the president of the Parliamentarian Forum, which is taking place at the same time that we have this within the framework of the World Social Forum, is David Zimmer from the German party Die Linke. And on the other hand, I am happy that we have also an expert on all of our questions which we are discussing, Mr. Igor Kotlik from Russia, and who also will give his input on the question. And then, of course, we open up the floor. Also, I see with Judith Delheim from the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation here, and well, the second part can be, I think, less formal than the first part, and I would perhaps, since he's the only one coming from Donbass, give the floor first to our friends from the Donbass.
Great thanks to everyone who concerned with the problems which are taking place in Ukraine now and who came here.
У нас очень сложные дебаты происходили даже в нашей маленькой группе представителей Украины.
We have really complicated debates going on in our small Ukrainian group here.
Мы обратили внимание на то, что социальные проблемы они сближают, идеи интернационализма, идеи решения проблем рабочего класса они сближают и находим общее, пришли к общему решению.
We recognize that social problems and problems of working class are getting us closer, and they allow us to come to common visions, which we made yesterday, finally.
Свое решение на черновике мы набросали. Думаем, что сегодня после обсуждения вопросов, которые мы поднимаем, мы его дополним и, возможно, сделаем какое-то заключение.
We drafted our vision and we brought it here at the end of our round table, let's say. We will enrich it with ideas which will come from later.
Делаем заключение, резюме нашего.
Then we'll resume our conclusions.
Can I ask you to speak a little louder when we're speaking in Russian, because there are several who understand Russian, so you could hear you.
Громче по-русски, потому что многие понимают по-русски и хотели бы слышать.
Я стараюсь говорить немножечко потише, чтобы было легче переводить.
I try to speak about a bit silent, but to make it easier to translate.
Я прошу простить тех, кто понимает русский язык просто так, без переводчика. Учитывая мнение большинства.
That's not just remarks. Sorry for those who understand Russian without translator. Maybe some introduction who you are and
Меня просят рассказать о себе, значит, лидер профсоюзного движения Донбасса, был политическим заключенным. Период, когда произошли события в Украине, был избран от Рабочего фронта Украины депутатом Верховного Совета Донецкой Народной Республики.
I've been asked to introduce, to tell a bit about myself. So I've been a leader of, for quite a long time, I was a leader of trade unions movement. I've been also a political refugee.
Prisoner.
Oh, sorry, political prisoner в Украине, да? В Украине или в Советском Союзе? Политическим заключенным.
Политическим заключенным я был при власти Януковича.
He'd been political prisoner during Yanukovych time. So that was last president who was thrown during the Ukrainian Revolution. And in period of those events in Ukraine we are talking about, being elected as deputy of Donetsk People's Republic.
From the WSF organization.
На данный момент главной задачей своей считаю создание политической партии коммунистического толка, которая могла бы сегодня претендовать на рычаги власти.
For the moment, I consider my main task is creation of political party of the communist tendency, which could participate in the government.
Ну, в принципе, пока все. Я думаю, если есть вопросы, я попрошу.
Участвовать в власти?
Он не участвовать, а взять власть.
Взять власть, ты сказал?
Да.
Sorry, to overtake the power, he says, not participate in the власть. To overtake the leverages of the authority. Sorry, that is slang.
Ну, немножечко поправлю, потому что здесь в связи с неточностью перевода я говорю именно о том, что на сегодняшний момент есть политическая сила, скажем, перспектива создания политической силы, которая может вывести на новый уровень вообще отношения к государству.
According to some translation uncertainty, I would clarify that I'm talking about I think that now there is a perspective of creation of political force, политической партии,
которая изменит вообще государственную диктатуру.
Political force which will be able to change the political system. Political dictatorship. Any state is a dictatorship of ruling class, and this political force would be able to change this system.
Поэтому считаю, что государство, если диктатор себя должно принадлежать солидарности.
And that is why I think that this kind of state, literally the state should belong to the people, to the working class and to all the people.
Thank you. Nadia?
My name is Nadia. I'm not a very professional translator, so Leo introduced me. I had my first education in mathematics. All my conscious life I've been involved in the environmental movement. That is very natural, taking into consideration that I'm coming from Kyiv, which is 80 kilometers from Chernobyl, and that is actually how I got involved into World Social Forum, the European Social Forum movement, and to Troskyist network as well, because the environmental movement in my country is really interlinked with social movements, and I'm rather tending to so-called eco-anarchist or socio-ecological movement of former Soviet Union, actually, not only Ukraine. We started the former Soviet Union, we never actually broke up, even now, with our Russian parts of colleagues. Since December of last year, I got involved in we created media activist group Spin TV, which means Juntos TV, which means common TV, common vision. And we've been organizing and performing a live stream from all the events and processes of Maidan. We were also participating in civil society with self-organization processes in the Maidan, civil council of Maidan, etc. And not only doing journalist work, but also organizational work, creating visions, etc., etc. But since the conflict started in the east, we've been, of course, visiting, trying to speak to people of both parts. And my personal experience of all Eastern, Southern Ukrainian people were that we had lots of in common. Even if you meet someone and he tries to break your camera, to beat you, if you will stand this moment, then later you still can communicate. Moreover, you can come to common vision and even common action plan how to influence, to control our authorities, that they would change the system. That was the main idea of Maidan, to change the system, and this was basically the main idea of Eastern protests, to change the system. That's why actually I got involved in this process, which started last summer, with Fatima Revolution, because I strongly believe that this conflict is created artificially. We, as a civil society, left forces, we really can have potential to stop it if we would not let, if we would oppose all the provocations and oppose foreign intervention into Ukrainian, fueling Ukrainian conflict.
Thank you, Nadia. Now that we have sort of heard as a matter of introduction the perspectives from where the conflicts have been lived, not only seen. Perhaps we can ask ourselves the questions, what can we do with the present situation where we have a lot of victims, a lot of refugees on all sides. What is it that the population would need, and what can be fulfilled by the movements as ours in order to satisfy these needs? What can we do with one word?
Can I speak Russian? Последний месяц я провела на Донбассе, делая исследования о женщинах и их влиянии на них войны.
Lina is from Kiev, but last month he spent on Donbass, mainly in Donetsk, making a research actually about the women and the women affected by war in this region.
У меня было много вопросов, но самые интересные ответы были на два из них.
We have many questions in our survey, but two questions were most important, and we received the most significant answers.
Они отражают понимание не только женщин, но и населения в целом сути конфликта.
I think that these answers reflected the perception of the conflict not only by women but the whole society.
Первый вопрос звучал так: кто с кем воюет?
The first question was, who is fighting whom in this war?
Никто не смог ответить на этот вопрос однозначно.
Nobody can give the direct, clear answer to this question.
Потому что среди населения нет понимания того, кто эти стороны конфликта, чтобы описать их детально.
Most of people do not understand clearly what are the sides of this conflict and cannot describe these sides specifically.
Второй вопрос был о том, могут ли люди озвучить требования сторон.
The second question was, can you please describe the demands of the sides fighting in this war?
И с этим тоже проблема.
And we have the problems with this also.
Потому что на данном этапе мало кто понимает, о чем эта война.
It looks like on this stage, very few people really understand what is this war about actually.
Вспоминая о том, с чего началось, но на данном этапе кто что хочет и почему продолжают стрелять, сказать не может никто.
People recall some events that triggered the war. They remember very good why this war began, but they couldn't describe now what demands we have at the moment.
Если смотреть телевизор, то каналы проукраинские и каналы пророссийские, там ситуация более однозначная и более понятна, потому что украинские СМИ воюют с Путиным, а пророссийские воюют с хунтой.
Yes, of course. If you will watch pro-Ukrainian or pro-Russian television, you will have kind of clear picture. Ukrainian SME are fighting Putin, and Russian SME are fighting junta in Kiev.
Но люди, которые видят конфликт внутри,
But people who see the conflict inside,
испытывают явно когнитивный диссонанс между тем, что они видят и тем, по телевизору, и тем, что они видят на самом деле.
But insiders, people inside the conflict, constantly have cognitive dissonance. Yes, the television do not respond to the reality they see.
Когнитивный диссонанс — это не совсем шизофрения, это политический.
Ну, несоответствие, да?
В нашем центре есть одна из программ исследования по протестной активности.
In our Center for Social and Labor Research in Kiev, one of the directions of our research, one of the research programs, is about the protest activities in Ukraine.
Анализ протестов за 2013 год показывает, что причины протестов как на Востоке, на Западе, на Юге, в центре и в Крыму были одни и те же.
Our analysis of the protest activities in all parts in Ukraine, in the central part, in western part, in eastern part, show very clearly that the major reason for protest, major slogans of protests were mostly the same, of social problems, social and economic problems of the people. It was the research of 2013. Two main reasons is social economic issues and corruption.
И мы говорили о том, что угроза роста протестов во всех регионах Украины, она усиливается.
And during the year 2013, we saw very clearly that the protests activity is growing up and the escalation of it is very likely.
Потому что по всей территории Украины люди одинаково были бедные и одинаково бесправные.
It looks like that all over Ukraine people feel themselves poor and more poor and powerless, without no real civil rights.
И, на мой взгляд, решение конфликта лежит, первое, это в решении социально-экономических вопросов по всей территории Украины.
So we see that, from my opinion, as I said, that the decision to solve this problem, this conflict, the first must is to solve these social, economic problems.
А с другой стороны, вовлечение гражданского населения в процессы государственные, в принятие решений, потому что конфликт не лежит внутри общества, он привнесен извне.
So, other significant thing to solve this problem is a real participation of civil society in the governing of the state all over Ukraine in all parts. Because this conflict was really artificially created, artificially launched, and inspired to very much extend from the outside of the country.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Zahar.
Yes, my name is Zahar. I'm very sorry, but it's much easier for me to speak when I stand, so please forgive me.
It's also better for us if we can.
Yeah, probably it's even better to hear. Yes, my name is Zahar Popovich. I'm mostly a political activist, member of Left Opposition Collective in Kyiv, and I participated in Maidan movement during all this movement, mostly with my red banner. Some people say that there was no red banners on Maidan, but it's strange for me because I was there. And I'm also an expert in the Center for Social and Labor Research. I have a PhD in economics. We did some, recently we did some research about the possible consequences of the free trade zone of Ukraine and European Union. And mostly we find out that the integration of Ukraine into the free trade zone, this European Union, would be generally a disaster for the Ukrainian economy, except of course of some specific branches and so on, and of course well, most of Ukrainian oligarchy will benefit in some way. But now I try to make some points about the dialogue we have. Well, my personal perception was very bad. Was very bad not only about the conflict in Ukraine, but actually about the international left. Understand me correctly, I believe very much in the internationalism, in the workers' international struggle. I believe that only international struggle of socialist communists all over the world could change the system. And I found out that most of the left, not most, but many of the left whom I knew in Europe, in Russia, well, have no position about what is going on. And even worse, many of them have very campist position and spoken mainly about the geopolitical problems between the imperialist powers. And very, very few words, very few attention was paid to the problems of the workers in Donbass, of the working people in Ukraine who are suffering. And what we tried to do now, I am the left activist from Kyiv who supported Maidan. I understand all problems with Maidan, but generally I supported it. And Alexander, who actually is a from the point of view of Ukrainian government, separatist and terrorist and so on, but who is a workers' leader outside Donetsk, who supported this Donetsk People Republic and is a member of parliament of this Workers' Republic, which is illegal. But we agree that this war was launched by Ukrainian and Russian, but by oligarchs. This war was launched by ruling capitalist classes of Ukraine, both in Kiev and in Donetsk, as well as in Crimea. We agree that Crimea is now under the occupation of oligarchic capitalist powers. And mostly the government of Kiev, I absolutely agree, it's an oligarchic, bourgeois capitalist government, which has nothing to do with the real interest of the working people in Ukraine. But unfortunately, the ruling people in Donetsk People Republics are also the kind of local oligarchy supported by Russian oligarchs. And that is why we tried to make these points. And what is absolutely clear for us, that cease of fire is needed. Yes, we understand that Minsk agreements is generally the agreement between imperialist powers who are dividing their spheres of interest. But we also understand that each day of this war strengthening mostly far-right forces on the both sides, even clearly neo-Nazi forces, which present on the both sides of conflict. And for us, for leftists, unionists in both sides, in all sides and regions of Ukraine, is absolutely needed to stop this war, to push the agenda of social justice and international solidarity. And it is very, very hard to stay on this ground if war will escalate. We agreed with Alexander that if involvement of Russia would be open and if it increased, it would be a disaster for workers, communist movement in Donbass, not only in Ukraine. So this is the first point. And the next point is very connected. We appeal, yes, to leftists all over the world, to leftists from different countries. Give up with any campist logic of supporting one or other imperialist side and trying to present it as a somehow more progressive one. And stop blowing up the war in this sense. Unfortunately, many leftists use kind of hate speech and hatred speech, yes, and contribute to making of an image of enemy of both sides. It's very frequently that leftists use words like fascist junta. We in Kiev, in Donetsk, mostly agree that it's not a junta. Words has its meaning. Not all Ukrainians on Maidan were fascists. It's not true. Not all Ukrainian armed forces are kind of punishers. But we of course see the war crimes on the both sides, and we should call for punishment for specific war criminals on this side. As well as not all people in Donbass are some terrorists, but of course there are also some right-wingers and there are some war criminals on that side also. Yes, this I'm probably out of my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zahar. I'm really amazed at how much in this first round we already could get as an input, and in order to make sure whether you or we all agree, I only want to resume the principal points which stuck my mind before giving the word to Alexander, in order to know also whether he agrees, who comes from the other side of, geographically other side of where the other three are coming from. One thing which I found very interesting was Nina said on this analytical scheme that there are no clear answers who is who in this war, and that makes that in somehow the feelings on both sides was that this is, and that is a key word, an artificial war.
Artificially created.
It is a real war now.
Yes, artificially created war. Do you agree to this formulation? Then, which is related, this concept of artificially created war, to another thing which Zahar pointed out, that this war anyway only strengthens the far-right forces. And this was, that I was going to say, this war was launched by the oligarchs from both sides. And last but not least, this emphasis Zahar made at the end about hate speech, and there must be some promoters of the hate speech. Do you also think that this is one of the evils which promote this war? Because if we can coincide on these points and register them, if we can coincide, agree on these concepts, and I want right away to put the question to you all, if this is like that, what as a consequence could we do about it to change the situation? Not in general, but with regard to hate speech, far-right, oligarchs, what should be done, and what is our role as left in that? I know it's a very big package, but you are also a big man.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much.
Да, действительно, я абсолютно согласен с Захаром, как я сказал, это решение далось нам не просто, но выработано, оно обдумано, оно не является линией, скажем так, одного человека.
I absolutely agree with Zahar, and I already said that this, actually Zahar was reading our common statement, which we elaborated yesterday, and what Alexander says, that was a common vision which which wasn't easy for us to reach, but he absolutely agrees with that.
Спасибо сети интернет, я имел возможность согласовать каждый пункт нашего принятого решения, которым мы вас ознакомили.
And thanks to internet networks, I had a possibility to agree every point with my colleagues back in Donbass, so this joint statement is absolutely agreed with his organization.
Что касается продолжения темы о новых технологиях, я могу добавить.
Regarding new technologies issues.
Сегодня одна программа на компьютере способна освободить людей от труда более миллиардов человек.
Regarding new technologies, I must say that nowadays one computer program is able to liberate 1 billion of people from physical labor.
Как в свое время двигатель внутреннего сгорания и паровая машина уничтожила феодализм, также и компьютер призван уничтожить существующую систему.
In the same way as internal combustion engine killed the feudalism and steam machine, so together steam engine kills the feudalism today.
Computer will kill capitalism.
Yes, today computers kill the capitalism.
It's modern system.
Too long sentence.
Именно поэтому у нас стоит выбор, либо будет существовать человечество, либо значит, изменить систему, либо человечество обречено на смерть.
And that is why now we are facing the choice
изменить экономические отношения и производственные отношения.
Or we will change the economical and productive relationships, or the humanity will get extinct.
Will not survive.
Либо человечество погибнет как вид.
As a kind, as humankind.
Социальные проблемы, которые возникли на территории Украины, они искусственно разжигались на протяжении длительного времени.
Social problems which are now we are facing in Ukraine were fueled during quite a long period of time.
Майданы и антимайданы были призваны для того, чтобы накалить обстановку до крайней точки.
Maidan and Anti-Maidan movements were called to hit the conditions, the situation to the higher degree, higher point of hit.
Противостояние на Майдане силовых структур и митингующих пришло к развязке, кровавой развязке.
The counteractions between protesters and police forces on Maidan came to bloody solution, bloody consequences.
Дальнейшие события захлестнули всю Украину. Начали гибнуть люди, поток репрессий, который был запущен. Погибли люди во всех фактически частях Украины.
The further events which flooded Ukraine led to the numerous deaths in all the parts of Ukraine.
Донбасс, видя эту ситуацию, стал на защиту своей территории.
Donbass, observing the situation, stood up to defend their territory.
Присутствовало очень много различных мнений, потому что этот искусственный конфликт на протяжении длительного времени разжигался на национальной, религиозной и исторической почве.
There are different points of view, because this conflict was artificially fueled or heated up on nationalist ground and
religious,
historical and religious grounds.
В результате единый народ был разделен на два воюющих лагеря.
At as a result, the united people of Ukraine were divided into two camps, confronting each other.
И как оказалось, это не предел, его продолжают делить.
And it started to be not the end, not the limit. This is still being under division, so there are forces who are still continuing dividing these two parts of Ukraine.
Я благодарен Леву, благодарен тем, кто здесь собрался и озабочен нашим вопросом.
I'm grateful to Leo and to everyone who gathered here, who are concerned by our issues.
Я считаю, мы сможем подтвердить выработанную нашу общую позицию.
And I believe that we should подтвердить позицию.
Ну, видимо, в практике подтвердить, да?
That we can prove in practice the position which we have already elaborated, so we will be able to prove it in practice. That this
И, возможно, сделаем кое-какие выводы.
And possibly we can make some conclusions.
Наше,
Может, ты их озвучил бы, да?
наше общее решение
Our common solution
внести в заключительную часть данного проекта
is to introduce to the final part of this project, which is our statement, joint statement.
следующими пунктами.
We should introduce the following paragraphs.
Мы считаем, что окончательное урегулирование вооруженного конфликта на территории Украины
We believe that the final solution of the military conflict in Ukraine,
может быть, для удобства я дам зачитать, то есть мы вот набросали, здесь есть на английском, есть на русском языке. Как лучше сделать?
Ну, зачитай, да, это, наверное, это вот Саша разработал это предложение, и нам надо его, так сказать,
he had a question, should we read it in English or should we read
It's
it in
not
Russian?
printed yet,
What is
Alexander.
Excuse me, just in order to save a
It's
little
very
bit
short.
of time, if anybody can have a copy of this.
Нет, Leo, it was written just today by Alexander, and it's very short points, it's not printed.
It's not another one.
So the question was,
Okay,
shall we read
I
it in
thought
Russian
you was
then,
reading this one.
Just shall I read it in
Okay,
English?
go ahead.
Because we have a translation.
Okay, yes.
Better just translation. Okay. We agree with the final segment of the war conflict to the character of Ukraine, and establishing of lasting stable peace is possible only under condition that social problems of working people all over Ukraine are solved. To achieve this, the working class of all regions of the country should be united, especially with need. Not only troops withdrawal from the front line, but also ensuring that all the armed units return to their permanent bases. And the economic blockade of Donbass ensuring translations. Not only to cancel all economical to stop economical blockade of Donbass, to provide unlimited provision of medicine and food and the goods of the first need. To cancel, to stop persecution of people for their political views, social, religious or national identity, and to provide possibility of free expression of their views. And the fourth, to restore and identify social guarantees, pensions, allowances and salaries, to lower tariffs for communal services and transport, the prices for food in a way that the price of corresponded потребительская корзина, minimum, consuming minimum, wouldn't exceed 30% of minimum wages. To reduce working time to 3-4 hours in order to provide employment for all adult population. That's so that was the fifth one. To restore destroyed infrastructure destroyed by war, industrial industry, cities, and settlements in Donbass and to repay the harm which was material and moral harm to the victims of this war. Thanks.
Thank you very much. This was really a great input because it showed, starting with this overarching subject that you can only make changes in the situation of Ukraine if we change the system, starting with a general announcement which evocates some slogans we use in the social forum when they say change the system and not the climate. You can change only the Ukrainian situation. Alexander tried to break down a little bit what I just was trying to ask him, but he did it in reading his points. What should be the concrete points of this system change? That the armed should go to the quarters, that there should be a particular emphasis on food and climate necessity, to stop persecution, and to restore social security. These are very concrete points which could be part of the platform. Do you think, now I ask Nina, Zaka, Nadia, whoever wants to take the floor, do you think that, first of all, that you agree with these 4 points, and secondly, perhaps you want to add something to these points to complete the spectrum, and especially also thinking about how can we, if we say food must be distributed, what can we do about it so that this system could work, could be established under the present conditions, which is not the conditions, as we said, of perfect democracy, but must perhaps not the contrary. What can we do to contribute these things to happen? This is a question which I wanted you to discuss perhaps as a final point before we open the floor to a general discussion for the others.
Excuse me.
Follow up tape. I was leaving the floor when I was asking a question, which points you could put up in addition to it, and tackle also with the question, please, how this could be implemented, not making only reference because some discussions is, well, Obama should do that and Putin should do that and we are all agreed. But what can we do in order to make this happen? What is our strategy to implement? I don't know, now it's up to you, or who wants to speak about this subject from...
На наш взгляд, есть вопросы, лежащие в практической плоскости, а есть те, которые мы можем решать на перспективу, используя, делая планы, ближайшие планы для взаимодействия и развития.
From my point of view, there are two kinds of questions. There are very specific, urgent questions that we should decide now, and of course there are some kind of strategic perspective, things that we should do and plan for a longer perspective.
У нас есть наработки экономической программы и экономических реформ, которые мы могли бы внедрять как на территории подконтрольной Украине, так и в Донецкой республике.
As leftists, yes, we have, of course, alternative economic and social program for Ukraine, and we are trying, as a scientist, to develop it more deeply and specifically.
речь идет и о открытии данных, и о вовлечении гражданского населения в решение государственных вопросов, потому что эти проблемы присутствуют в обеих частях. Да. Ну и про офшоры.
Of course, as we are talking about the agenda that should benefit every region of Ukraine, it could be good for Donbass and Kiev. And this includes the, to say, the elimination of this offshore business of oligarchs to make them pay taxes, because they at the moment pay zero taxes whenever in Ukraine they work. Also it includes the problems of default and cancellation of the foreign debt of Ukraine. And also it includes just taxation of profits and so on, as well as the problems of the transparency of the state, open data, and introduction of participatory democracy, institutions and functions.
Мы можем двигаться в этих направлениях вместе. Также есть и гуманитарные вопросы, которые нужно решать прямо сейчас.
And we can, and as electors, we should move in that directions together. But of course, we have very specific questions that we should decide to solve just today.
И здесь мы можем находиться на таких позициях общего гуманизма и думать в первую очередь не о выгодах сторон, а о том, как при этом, что при этом получают люди.
And in these specific things, we should, to say, be on the position of the general common humanism, and think as a first must, we should think about the interests of these specific, concrete people that are now suffering from the shortages of needed medicine, food, and other stuff.
Как на территории Украины, так и на территории Донецкой республики есть много волонтерских групп, которые помогают всем, без разницы от территориального нахождения людей.
To be very specific, on the territory of Ukraine, as well as on the territory of, say, Donetsk People's Republic, there are now many volunteer organizations, grassroots volunteer organizations, that are organizing help to the people who suffer from the war.
И мне кажется, что с этими организациями нужно тоже объединяться и налаживать контакты для помощи населению в вопросах первой необходимости.
And most of these volunteers makes no difference between from what side people are coming. The basic point is that people are suffering, and we need to find out the strategies and we should work on the problem of connecting these voluntary initiatives on the both sides to make this humanitarian aid supply more effective, specific, and
также вместе выступать против экономической блокады, которая сейчас существует на Донбассе, и от которой в первую очередь страдают незащищенные группы населения, социально незащищенные.
And other point is that we in Kiev now understand that we should strongly advocate the abolishing of actually blockade of the region, which we can see, and understand that this blockade, at the moment, it's not a supply for some military units of Donetsk People's Republic, but it's a supply of poor people who suffered, who were affected by war and now suffered.
Thank you. If there is another contribution you want to make, do it now, because then I would like to open up the floor to also other people who are not from the Ukraine. But I will give you still a chance if you have something to add, which should be especially on the question of how and what should we do to implement of many of the things which have been already said. If not, I want to say that I'm really very... How are you? You didn't say.
So I'm not only translating.
Yes.
I would like to emphasize a bit more practical things, how to implement everything that will be said here, with regard to what kind of assistance or what kind of participation in this process you, our colleagues, might have. From my experience of last years, well, we just discussed the ideas which we could see from different points who will do best, who will be the one who is responsible for implementing, for instance, cancellation of ceasefire or economical blockade, or etc. How it's going on in Ukraine last year, that's already a couple of years already, or 1.5 years, that the government fails to respond to people's demands, people wins, and civil society is really active. So the way how to do it in Ukraine includes both. Putting pressure into government, into state, which is actually very helpful when there is international society also. Just we should take into account a mentality of formers of ex-former Soviet Union countries that unfortunately somehow the authorities are paying attention on the opinion of the West. So if international society somehow supplements or supports us, then we have more chances to be heard. And also the big role is now played by civil society. So if we talk about civil society organizations in terms of humanitarian aid, now we have a chance maybe to cooperate with colleagues from Donbass, at least to provide safety for them. It is not made, because last month, especially last year, there were lots of victims from volunteers who were going inside the Donetsk Republic to provide, even priests were tortured. So the matter of safetyness was really hard. If you succeed to make an agreement or some cooperation on creating these corridors of safety with people on Donetsk, then we will make easier the job of those people who are providing humanitarian aid to both sides, actually. Still, sometimes it is not really easy. The same on the refugee issues. It's very hard now to fight this image of enemy on both sides. Many of our authorities are trying to impose legislation like legitimize blockades in multidimensional ways. In terms of physical freedom of movement, in terms of providing pensions, basic food, etc. And people of Ukraine got really divided by this question. Because maybe Ukrainians used to be a peaceful nation, quite easy coming to compromises, to go to consensus in basic things, but these kind of things happen maybe first time in last history. It really broke people. And there is no culture of peace movement developed yet in broad sense. And I think what would be important is to bring this culture, to help assist bringing this culture of pacifying between relationship between each other from experience of Western movements or Syrian movements, how it normally works. Because people just really sometimes got torn out. And that actually allowed the government to impose this economical blockade, etc. So for me, that is the way, the most important things we can do now. So try to cooperate between civil society of mainland as well as Ukraine and Donbass people, and try to get the support, at least bringing this culture of peace movement into Ukraine.
So, you want to?
К сожалению, я не все понял, что говорит Надежда. Но согласен с мнением Захара и Нины. У меня нет больших возражений. Единственное, что хочется...
I did not have big arguments with them, but the only thing I want to stress on.
Обратить ваше внимание на то, что на Донбассе проживает 7,5 миллионов человек.
I want to bring your attention to the fact that there are 7.5 billion people living in Donbass.
Никакая гуманитарная помощь его не спасет.
And no humanitarian aid would help it.
Нам необходимо восстанавливать наши предприятия, которые разрушены войной.
We need to restore our enterprises, our production, which was destroyed by the war.
Нам необходимо восстанавливать всю инфраструктуру.
We need to restore our infrastructure, entire infrastructure.
И то заключительное итоговое решение диалоговой группы, я считаю, оно отражает как раз суть проблемы.
And our final conclusion of our group reflects
Yes, this important point reflects
this situation.
Yes, that we should take international effort probably to restore the industry, yes, to restore the infrastructure of the region.
Спасибо.
Thank you. What Nadia just had said is perhaps a good transition when she said we need, in order to implement that, the support of international civil society. As a matter of fact, it is also my profound belief, and not only since the Ukraine conflict, but also here we have somebody present who is a leading figure of the Syrian opposition, also in other conflicts, it's the same thing. You can only be effective if you globalize the support, if you to all that, because the inside is too weak and the outside is also too weak without having a point of reference in the inside. And what our project just is trying to do, and I think this past hour has been very successful in doing that. I did not expect that much, to tell the truth, is to look whether there can be a counterpart for our solidarity of those who agree in the outside that peace has to be established in the inside, and to create a dynamics outside inside, which then eventually could be a real political force in Ukraine and about Ukraine. So to get away with this invisible curtain which blurs the mind in one sense or in another. And this blurring of the mind has a system. That's the dimension of geopolitics. And I would like to ask now several speakers and also others who are here present, what can we do in the outside to fulfill this perspective, given these hate speeches, given this distortion of reality we have in the media, given all this polarization which isn't between the European Union, Russia, and so on, how can we contribute to this? And I would first like to ask Gabi if you can give your comment on it, and I must say it because I feel it. I thank you really very, very much that you came here, not having so many other things to do, not only to speak and say a few words, but I admire politicians who are capable of listening, and thank you very much for this. Gabi.
Thank you too, and first of all I would like to thank you for your comments you gave us, and for me the main thing today was to hear a common voice of leftist people, left people from Ukraine. And I think this will be the main thing we need for the future. As you mentioned, that left movements, left groups, left forces in Europe and global left forces, that they were not able to understand the situation, and that they were not able to understand what was going on, and that they divided and said we are on this side, we are on the other side. I can only say you are totally right. This is our problem. I will not speak for the left at all. I can only speak for the experiences I have for the group. I'm the president, I'm the chairwoman, the left group in the European Parliament. We are 53 people, and this group from 14 member states of the European Union. And we have a broad participation, membership in it, from traditional, friendly spoken, traditional communist parties, democratic communist, democratic socialist parties, green left parties, till Scandinavian parties. But we have no one common position. It's not possible for me to speak in the European Parliament in the name of the group to this issue. And this is a scandal. But it's the same problem we have also looking to the peace movement. Why we are not able to say, lay down the arms? I think you have seen the paper from Judith Delheim with this headline. And I was reminded on Data von Suttner, when she published in 1889. 1889, we have to remind it. Lay down the weapons, lay down the arms. And I think we have to bring the regard and the focus on the people living in Ukraine, in eastern Ukraine, in Donbass, in Ukraine, in western Ukraine, but also in Russia. We have to focus on their life, and we have to understand that it's in the end, it makes not a sense to say who is responsible. Russia, the EU, USA, the oligarchs and the others. We have to know it for us to estimate the situation, but to find out and to find common positions. We have to bring the focus on the people. This is our thing. And we have also to clarify, and this is not clear, we have also to clarify this conflict, this war has a global dimension. Nobody should think he or she, they could win the situation, they could win a conflict. Nobody will be the winner. We all will lose. And if you look to the left in Europe, or especially in the European Union, you can think that also parts of the left are on the one side saying, using the same words you accuse, the Maidan, this was a fascist movement. We cannot work together with the new elected government in Ukraine because this these elections were the consequence of a fascist turn. That's why we will not accept the outcome of the election in the Ukraine. This is one position, and a very, very strong position. The other position, going down the Greens, part of the Greens, saying the Ukraine must be part of the European and the global security system. They must be included in the NATO. We have to deliver arms to the Ukraine. The Ukraine has to give up the position of neutrality. And it's between this, we have nothing. This is the problem. We have nothing who are nobody, or not a strong force that is able to say it's not so easy only to say black and white, white and black. We have to describe what we can do and what we should do. What we will do as a left next time in the European Parliament, if we have to decide about the next decision for the payments to the Ukraine. One of the positions is to say, no, we will not support it because this money is not for supporting the people, not for humanitarian aid. And in the first row, the Ukraine government will use it for the next, for weapons and for the army reconstruction and so on. What will we do in this case? We have not a majority, we have a very, very small voice in the European Parliament to say we will not support Putin, we will not support the oligarchs, we will not say who is the right person or the right force. We have to look on what is going on and what kind of solutions we can find. I think, first of all, we have to look on the relaunch of the Eastern European Partnership policy by the European Union. In May, there will be the next summit in Riga, and if I'm right, what I'm understanding is that some forces in the EU institutions understanding that they have to change a little bit. They will not say we were wrong when we insisted on only to join the European, not the European Union, but this agreement, association agreement with the European Union. But I think there will be some changes, slow changes. I'm sure it will be not enough, but we have to insist, we have to use our possibility to influence this. And from this, we need your position. We need to know what you are thinking about it. Do you see a real possibility that the Ukraine could be included in this association agreement with the EU and also in the cooperation with Russia? What is concretely possible? And for this we need more information, more facts. This will be the only thing that we can also convince our friends from other parts of the left. And the next thing is we need more information from you, because I think it's necessary to understand that we have also to overcome our old language. Looking to what I heard from different communiques by communist parties in Russia or also in the Ukraine, this is the old language. This is not helpful. It's not helpful to use this language, because this is only an ideological approach. This is not an approach to the real reasons and to bring together the different groups, the different forces in Ukraine. And for this I would like to say we have also to work on all the positions you said, we have to support and we have to win the support by left forces in a broader way to support, to put the way down, to lay the arms down, to support any kind of humanitarian aid, to discuss officially about and publicly about reconstruction of infrastructure in Donbass and in other regions of Ukraine. And we have to support any way of diplomacy to include once more Ukraine and Russia into the official diplomacy. And we have to do more to mobilize the people, that we all understand us as part of the peace movements and saying, yes, if you don't know exactly what we can demand, we have to express that we are shocked about the situation and that we want to understand the situation and that we want to discuss with all interested people how to find a solution out of the situation. But we will not say you are the people or the forces standing behind them. We have to understand there is no other solution as to lay down the arms. If you want to get concrete contact also with the political forces or left groups in delegations in the European Parliament, I think we can do it. We are interested in also to bring together left forces from Eastern Europe, not only from Ukraine, but also from Eastern Europe, together with other leftists to have a discussion. Because I think there is a broad misunderstanding also in the political culture, in the political history, in the political understanding, and the political view between the left people in Eastern and Western Europe. And we have to close this leg.
Thank you very much. This was really a strategic orientation, especially towards European governments. As you pointed out, we can only persist in this strategy if we have a counterpart also in Ukraine, which we are trying to build. Now, since we are moving to the second round of opinion, and we have been announced as two during the moderation, I want to give the floor, but not the floor as a speaker, the floor as a moderator to Herman to continue with this discussion and around, with and around
my role as a moderator, I want to make for above all questions, further questions. First of all, I agree with the judgment that this is in some kind a historical session. To have people from both sides of the Ukraine on one, not round table, but on one table, and that there's consensus in a lot of questions, in a lot of spheres, and also on a concrete level. When I look to the amendments Alexander made. So my questions are, we have now in some or many points agreements. What can we do on a concrete level? For example, peace. I totally agree with your demand, die Waffen nieder, the old slogan of Gerd von Suttner, lay down the weapons. How can this be implemented in a concrete way? It's a question to you, to make corridors, that the armies are really going back to the barracks, yes? That there's not only ceasefire, but that the war is over. How can this be step by step made within the Ukraine? And how can we, the left, the peace movement in the West, support you in a concrete way, not abstract blah blah, but in a very concrete way, what should we do? That's the one thing. And the other thing is economic reconstruction, food for the population, a future for the economy in the west and in the east of Ukraine, in the Donbass. What will you do? It's a question. What will you do within the Ukraine, within the trade unions? And what could maybe our job be in the West, in the social movements, in the trade unions, not only in Western Europe, maybe also in some other parts of Eastern Europe? What demands can we raise? What should we, how should we act? What discussions we should reinforce? So, consciously, I don't give an answer. I put back to you very concrete question, not on an ideological level, but what can we do in the next time? Now we have an extreme good discussion on World Social Forum. We have some good papers, we have some good demands, but how can they be implemented in a concrete way? It's a question to you, and it's a question to all the other comrades who want to integrate themselves in concrete solidarity activity and peace activity.
Well, it's really not easy, of course, to find this very specific program and very specific steps. Yes, I want to focus attention on one very specific problem. This is two activists in prison in Crimea, the Russian Federation. One of them are left anarchist activists who has never nothing to do with Ukrainian rights, right and far right, and now he is accused in Russia as a member of right sector, neo-Nazi party, which is a total nonsense. And this probably specific things like the campaign to free Kolchenko is also important, I think. And probably we should try to do as much as possible to prevent real political repressions. And I should say that yes, we have some political pressure and sometimes a political repression inside Ukraine now. People who are supporting in some ways the Donetsk regions are some way under the pressure of Ukraine. So probably we can, as a left-hand activist, also make specific campaigns to prevent the things inside Russia, Donetsk, Crimea, and also the mainland Ukraine. But of course, probably there are problems much more real, as a problem of economic boycott over Donbass, and the problem of Ukrainian debt and the austerity policies of Ukrainian government. I think that these two things is a major disaster. And what could be done easily, I'm the left political activist not mainly, is some advocacy campaigns that should make it clear for Ukrainian people, for people inside Europe, that this politics of boycott should be abolished. And also, I hope that as much international observers as possible is needed to show the real situation, to prove it. Sometimes for people in Kiev or in Donetsk, it's very hard to prove what is really going on. And sometimes we feel ourselves manipulated by some pictures of media. and very few people from the left to say have a real picture. So probably the problem is that as we speaking now, the cease of fire is not that real at the moment. We have every day shootings on this front line. And in fact, we are not sure that in months or two the ceasefire could be broken and the next stage of the war will begin. And probably if we will use this chance to establish real ceasefire and to establish some kind of real line of division between armed forces, it will be probably the most important thing. I'm sorry if I can't give to say a very specific lists of ABC points, but to be honest, it's our first meeting with Alexander after more than a year of very disrupted communication. And probably in this communication we should work hard to develop such kind of specific lists of things that should be done.
I agree with that. What you said is complicated. We have to
first comment on the point that was made here regarding peace process, regarding peace in general. And I think it's, I don't know if I understood the speaker correctly, but the idea that the speeches that have been made in the kind of political language of the left is ideological, I think is kind of a problem because, you know, one of the biggest historic peace movements that we know of is the left and is displayed in the history of this region to some extent. So I think we should be clear about like the position of the left regarding peace, and not like kind of, it's not only to like liberals that, you know, we turn to. But my point is that from the outside, when we see this conflict come from London, and it's presented, obviously incorrectly, as a conflict between Russian chauvinism and kind of progressive, in the European sense, bourgeois, like nationalism of the Ukraine type, and this is the dynamic of the conflict. And obviously, in this meeting, we can see that that's not what's being presented. This statement is the opposite to that, and I think having something identifiable that we can turn the narrative on this conflict, something that can be like recognised and put on a high platform internationally is useful. I wonder what it would be as a kind of symbol or as a kind of force in the region for the alternative between that dynamic that is quite a false dynamic.
To the very central point of the question of to implement real peace, further discussion items would be important when we go home now from here from Tunis, that we have some ideas what we can do in a concrete way to support the peace movement in the Ukraine from outside, from other countries. I know it's complicated. If we don't have it at the present moment, we can also go over to the other questions, political repression and debt and so on. Please.
I'm not from France. I'm sorry for my English, but I will try to do my best.
Can you speak louder?
Yes. So I'm from France. I'm sorry for my English, but I will do my best. I don't have a solution because for the specific place, because I'm not from there and I don't have the right to give solution. But I think, and we did discuss about to be critical with the media and the role of the media and how the media they explain out of the place and even inside of Ukraine what is that war or what is not actually discovered. And as a solution, what I will continue to do in France is continue to educate about the media and how it's working, and that's really, it's not a solution to solve the problem just right now. But I think we should find or discuss about solution short and long time. And because I think that if in France the citizens they are aware and educated about the media and the roles of the media, there will be better citizens in France, but also better citizens for all around the world. So
I agree with you that the question of the media, that the question of counter-information is very important. As Gabi and other comrades said, there's a lot of misunderstanding of the conflict. Many people don't know about the situation, so it's absolutely necessary to give good counter-information to deal with the real problems in the Ukraine. Todd.
My name is Todd Björk from Friends of Sweden, and I'm also active in Troskyist 2 network. As a follow-up, I was the international coordinator of the European Social Forum in Malmö 2008. I think this is a historical moment, actually, because what we are in, I think, what has been said here from the left in the European Parliament is exactly what every organization should say in Europe right now. It's unbelievable how organizations have totally failed to do anything whatsoever. It's unbelievable. And it's certainly not only the left group in the parliament that should say exactly the same thing. There's actually one exception, it's the peace movement in Finland, where all the peace movement, the peace committee is very strong in Finland, the Women's for Peace and the pacifist movement made a common statement already in October when we pushed for it. So it's fully possible to do something. Secondly, we have to recognize that this work that has been going on by some few social forum individual participants, both inside Ukraine, in Belarus, Russia, in Austria, etc., is extremely impossible, more or less. There is no resources whatsoever. We are some few individuals. So the first thing here is actually to send around an email list, because we will not be able to solve this at this table. And I call everyone here, we don't manage it anymore. We are 5 people here. And we've been doing this for 1 year. And we've been doing a lot of mistakes. I've been personally to Crimea and met a lot of the opposition from Donbass and all of Ukraine, and there was also right-wing extremists. There's a lot internet about how horrible I am, and supposedly there's a lot of things about how everyone is horrible around who have been trying to mix themselves into this mess. So we need support. And I will find out that after all, it is a situation in Donbass, especially because the crisis is also extreme, but certainly also in Kiev and the rest of Ukraine, where it's very hard for them to unite somehow because you can sense it's war. And that means that it's historic that now it was possible to get these people here, and the statement that been made is really a step forward, and finally we have a language, we have a base for exactly what was asked for from the European Parliament. But that is exactly for everyone as well, because in the bottom line, the civil society, or I would prefer call popular movements, that's the key to this issue. And it's fantastic to see an anarchist environment activist sits beside a traditional, very left-wing trade unionist representing hundreds of thousands or something like that miners in Ukraine, and cooperating directly, giving a response not only to the European crisis, but to the whole European crisis. When did you hear a traditional trade unionist talk directly to the crisis, answering the crisis in the direct way? Because of the technology advancements, we need to face the whole war, the whole social austerity thing, with 4 hours working day. When did you hear that in Western Europe, where the trade unions are betraying everything they ever was? We don't dare to make anything. we want partnership, and we don't know yes more. This is revolutionary when the anarchists and the trade unions come together. So I think this is a historic moment. But the email list is necessary and fantasy. Everyone here has to start to think, what can I do? What can I contribute somehow? Because we don't manage them. Leo Gabriel is at the same time as he's been being in a travel agency for this film, last minute arranged, because there's no money anywhere. And the only money we got for trying to get a civil society dialogue going in a bigger meeting, not very big, was at the Eurasian ecumenical meeting in Moldavia. Then you can see what is going on in the Western Europe. So this is the precise situation we are in right now. And we need everything. We need ecumenical things. We need peace movement. We need environmental movement. I am afraid of the soil in Ukraine, where Monsanto will now take over with the help of billions of dollars, creating agri-industrial catastrophe, destroying all family farming in the rest of Europe, more or less. There is austerity, which is so extreme that we can't think about it. So, even if this is the worst, I've been going on for, I'm an environmental activist, I've been struggling my whole life in very hard things, but the answers given here by our friend from Ukraine is an answer not only to the crisis in Ukraine, it's an answer to the crisis in all of Europe.
We come now to the very concrete points. I have now a list, yes. Everybody who is interested to participate in our informations, please put your name, address and so on it. The second thing is, nearly each week, as Prague Spring 2, as an international network against the far right, we make a chat. Who wants to participate in this chat is invited. In the last time we dealt for above all with the Ukrainian question, but we also deal with other problems. As the name says, we're an international network against far right extremism and populism. Yes. And the third thing is, we have this text now. Yes. We will have some concrete amendments. We will give it to the organizers of the World Social Forum here to publish it. I think it's a very important text. Of course, we will give it to Gabi, and she can use it within the framework of the faction of the left in the European Parliament. That are the very concrete points at the present moment. Let's go on with the discussion if there are further discussion items. Okay? No?
Igor.
Yes, my name is May I
speak up?
My name is Igor Gottlieb. I'm a left activist from St. Petersburg, Leningrad, as we often continue to call this city. And here I can represent only myself, because the situation in the left organizations and the left groups in Russia is also very serious and very painful, and all these things that, for example, Gabet told us about the left movement in Europe is the same in Russia, but against the background of much weaker left organizations, much weaker left movements. So if they split, for example, on this question, they become, they cannot work, because they are very weak. In fact, I think that we need international efforts to cope with this very painful Ukrainian situation. I agree with all things that Nina said about the situation concerning practical steps. And I would like to stop at 3 points. The first point, the humanitarian work. In fact, attempts to integrate the efforts of humanitarian groups in both mainland Ukraine and Donbass with the efforts of European organizations are underway now by some persons and groups. For example, I know that there is one very good woman, Oksana Chelisheva. He was a Russian human rights defender before. He had to leave Russia due to the pressure and persecution from the Putin regime. Now she's based in Finland, but in fact most of the time she spends in Ukraine. And also she spends some time in Europe, and I know that she collaborates with different civic organizations in Europe and with some, also with some Europarlamentarians, maybe not from the left fraction, but maybe from the faction, but maybe from Oksana Chelisheva. I wrote about her, I can give her name. And I know, for example, that she is interested in these things. But surely all these things must have solid organizational ground. And so, if, for example, the left group in the Europarlament will be able to coordinate some additional activities in this field, it will be very good. Yes, there are a lot of humanitarian organizations in Ukraine that do this work. And, for example, if they are interested in publicizing their work in Europe, and concretely among the European left, I think this should be done, and also I think that Ukrainian activists can help in this. The second point concerns the political persecution and political prisoners. In fact, the situation is very serious in this respect, both in Russia and in Ukraine. And certainly in the Donbass self-proclaimed republics, the situation is even harder because they are formations that are in a state of war, and surely if we have a war in a small area, so the situation there with human rights and with repressions will not be good. But if the problem of political repression in the Donbass Republic is interconnected with the problem of stopping the war and establishing peace, Ukrainian and Russian states as a whole are not involved within themselves. And so here we must develop a campaign of solidarity, and this should be a campaign of solidarity with political prisoners both in Russia and Ukraine, because there are a lot of them in Russia and Ukraine. Zahar already has paid attention to the situation, the case of Sentsov and Kolchenko. In fact, there are some other activists in Crimea, for example, connected with Crimean Tatar organizations who are persecuted in Russia. At the same time, we have this situation in Ukraine, where we have political prisoners, for example, Ruslan Katsaba, a journalist who opposed this military draft mobilization campaign by the Ukrainian government, arrested for this. Some activists from the Communist Party of Ukraine, for example, the leader of the Ukrainian Workers' Union, Alexander Bondarchuk, and others who are in jail now. And I think that this campaign is possible to start. It is possible to launch this campaign in a rather symmetrical way. And this information also should be circulated, should be distributed within the between the European, Ukrainian, and Russian left activists. And the third point is about the peacekeeping programs. This is a very doubtful thing. And maybe I can make only some hypothetical proposals. But as far as I can understand, there is absolutely no trust between the fighting sides in Donbass. Each side blames the other side that the other side violates the ceasefire, moves its weapons back to the front line, and so on and so on. And I think this maybe cannot be solved or decided. This can be decided by us now, but it should be discussed. Is it possible to have some peacekeeping force in the region? I don't know the exact answer. I don't know an exact answer, but I think we should discuss these things. I would like to point that both in the Russian so-called geopolitical camp and in the Western geopolitical camp, there are some governments that have more or less reconciliatory positions on this conflict. We don't like the economic policy and the political repression policy of the Belarus regime, but we know that the Belarus government had some more or less reasonable approach to this conflict. And in Europe we have now the left government in Greece and maybe we can expect that it has some more reasonable approach to this conflict than the Washington administration and those who are in line with its policies. Maybe this is a problem of discussion. And the last point concerns the Russian situation. Psychologically, it is very difficult because we in Russia have the situation when everybody is assessed as either a supporter of the Putin's camp or the supporter of this pro-Western liberal opposition. And even if you don't support them directly, many will suspect that you are somehow manipulated, either by the Kremlin or by the pro-Western liberals or by the West. Here I think that our participation in these practical things, maybe in the humanitarian aid work, including maybe financial participation, we are poorer than Europe, quite richer than Ukraine, for example, as a country. Yes, and maybe some support to the trade union organizations and to attempts to restore some kind of unity between workers' organizations of two parts of Ukraine. If we help in some ways practically to these things, I think we can restore some workability of our left movement. And the last thing, this situation in Russia is maybe somewhat easier not in Moscow, because Russia is a very centralized country, and the outside world also sees this, and the main attention is paid to Moscow. But maybe left groups in some other places, starting from St. Petersburg, Leningrad, and maybe in some regional centers, will be also worth contacting in this respect.
I have two more speakers, and I want to inform you this is not the end of the debate. We will make a short break, and afterwards we will have a second round where we will discuss more above all the international and the geopolitical dimension of the conflict. Yes? Leo and Mirek, please.
But what I'm saying now is not anymore as a moderator, but as somebody who has been active part of the peace movement since quite at least for 1 decade and a half, and taking up the experiences we had in other conflict situations. I can tell you also, and I agree with Todd on that this I think is of a sort of a historical importance. I remember when we took the decision of triggering off the movement against the war in Iraq, we were also not more numerous than here, and a few months later it was, especially due to the World Social Forum, we managed to get 14 million people worldwide on the streets. So miracles are possible if you seize the moment. And I think that this is the right moment of trying to do something now, which perhaps has not been possible to make 2 months ago or 3 months ago. For instance, mobilization, trying to make mobilization. We have made experiences in different countries, in people in our network were very active in it, to try to make demonstrations in front of, I don't know, the Ukraine or whatever embassy, and we remained a very, very small group there. There was not the potentiality for that. But I think now, where there is even the community of nations and states and even the superpowers somehow think that there has been something has to be made to stop this war. Even on that level they agree. There is a political space for us, and if I say for us, I want to specify it in a twofold way. There is a possibility to start implementing actions which lead towards a broader mobilization. And when Gabi Zimmer was talking about what has in the European left has been the uncertainties, I think also this is the moment that we can talk of a combination between parliamentarian structures and structures of civil society defined both as being part of the left. This is not in all conflicts like that. I couldn't say that about Syria, for instance, or other conflicts, but this, just because it involves people who traditionally, in one way or another, has been identified by the symbolism of the left, this could be a way of I hate the word, of being somehow of a vanguard of a peace movement of a new kind, with a very political definition which goes beyond the general talk. I asked myself, who can do that? And I have the proposal that unless somebody wants to scratch his name when I said that from the list, that all of those who have signed here at their organizations, and we will go on to ask others, would be also ready to integrate an active movement for whatever has been proposed by the colleagues from the Ukraine. And the second, this is a request, we have a parliamentarian forum here outside. Is it possible that also the left parliamentarians, nearly I would say as a bloc, would subscribe such, it's not only a statement like this one, but the basic idea to put on the agenda Ukraine because of its importance in this in-depth dimension that we have talked about. And if we can combine civil society forces with parliamentarian forces, and especially left forces, I think the moment would be mature to implement mobilization and also perhaps to do something more, which has been mentioned by several persons here, to make a sort of a peacekeeping initiative within Ukraine from the outside. Why only the United Nations have to be the ones who, with helmets and blue collars and so on, make this kind? There are enough human rights organizations which are not installed by the state, community of states. So to say and propose officially, and let's fight for that people like you and me could be in a certain permanent state on the border between Russia and Ukraine, but also on this border that nobody talks about between Ukraine, Western Ukraine and Donbass. Let's go there. Let's organize that. We have experiences, especially with regard to Latin America, where this has worked very well. In Austria up until now, and we are not the only country, European country participating in this, we have our permanent observation committees of students in Chiapas and in other conflicted areas of Latin America. Constitute ourselves and make a campaign and make some training courses for people who would go there and trigger off, and because that would allow us to consolidate the acts between outside and inside, and would also, because with the help of our Ukrainian friends, establish relationships on a broader level. That is just a proposal.
Mirek and maybe Gabi wants to answer on some proposals.
Yes, during this session I got a concrete proposal. Practically I have landed for 20 years ago when I have been to Northern Ireland when the civil war ended up. And it's a long-term reconciliation measure. We have to do something about children who are the most vulnerable and hit by the war at most. And they need to do activities together. So I will push my government, my political party, civil movement to invite children from both sides of the divided Ukraine for different activities. And it will be also possible for our group in the European Parliament to push the European Commission to extend the program Erasmus+, because people, children, young people from Ukraine are supposed to be from The program does not allow children from one country and to allow people from Donetsk and Lugansk to be recognized as another country is impossible, I know, so it's necessary to change the rules for this emergency situation. And also, the European Youth Center of the Council of Europe can do something, the European Youth Foundation. So I propose these measures.
Thank you. Herman, Alexander will also make a contribution. Now,
Immediately? Or she wants to speak before, then Nina, and then Alexander.
I hope we will in the same way or so. Thank you very much for a lot of initiatives, proposals, ideas, what we can do together. Yes, it's a problem, but the forum of the World Forum of Progressive Parliamentarians is working the whole day. And now at the same time, when we were starting our work here on this issue, we started the work on the issue of peace. And I'm not sure might be there on the end now, because it will work now on different resolutions, different texts, and we'll vote about it. Not vote, but we'll decide about it. Of course, we can try if there is time. But we have a possibility that you or Nadia or any other one could speak. We have to check it. Martin can call Polymir, what is the current state of play, and then we have to run. In the other case, if it's too late, and I think it could be, I think you should send us an electronic version of this appeal.
Of course.
And we would send it to all the invited members of the Parliamentarian Forum with a short explanation before, because this is your statement. This is a statement of the people from the Ukraine. And what we can do is say, yes, we will support this position. This is necessary. We understand what we have to do. And on this base, it's possible to work. It's also big support, also for us. I will do it the same in my group. And we'll give it to all the members that they can discuss on this base and that they can hear the voice of Ukrainian people. And not those central committees of different parties outside of Ukraine. And I think this will be important. We should try what we can do now. In any case, we should distribute and this joint statement, and we should also give some explanations to it. And we could also look if we could get a contact address also, that you can get also replies by different members. Yeah. And the other thing you asked me, yes, I think we should try to check if it is possible to find a new way for Erasmus Plus. If it would be possible. If not in this year, because the budget is through, if we would find a possibility for the next year also. And that we make pressure on the Commission also to, if we have negotiation with the Ukraine, to implement it in the negotiation as an offer by the European Union to the young generation in the Ukraine. Yeah. We should try to do it. It's a good idea. Yes, and the other thing is, in my mind, we should continue this contact. Because this is exchange of views. And if we are able to bring together and could use also the possibility by our group to bring together people from different left organizations, networks, or initiatives, it could be useful for all of us. I said it in the beginning that we are planning to prepare together with friends, with our colleagues in different European member states, in Eastern member states, a meeting or a conference next year, or East-West conference, with the aim to bring together the people. You have to understand, in our group, we have only one delegation, one political party from Eastern Europe, only the Czech Communist Party. That means we have no members in the European Parliament from Poland, from Hungary, from Croatia, from all the others, from the Baltics, and this is a problem for us. That's why we have not a good background. We have to do it ourselves, and we have to build up the contacts.
Okay. Nina and Alexander.
Если позволите, нам нужен хлеб, а не оружие. То есть мы попытались сразу, да?
We need bread and not weapons.
Мы попытались здесь донести мнение левых Украины о том, что на сегодняшний момент
we tried here to present the opinion of the left in Ukraine that
вопрос стоит не в разделении Украины на Днепропетровскую, Донецкую, либо националистическую западную.
So that now the question is not in dividing of Ukraine to say to the Dnepropetrovsk region or nationalist west or east.
Не в выборе народа Украины Европейский Союз или Таможенный Союз.
And not in the, to say the choice of Ukrainian people of the European Union or opposite the customs union with Russia.
Левые Украины считают, что все союзы хороши, все союзы нам нужны.
Lefts of Ukraine think that all unions are good for us.
Поэтому все вопросы, которые возникли, они лежат только в плоскости социалистических вот этих вот моментов.
So for us, all the questions are lying in the perspective of the struggle for socialism.
Более 7 миллионов у нас зарабичан, люди, которые работают за границей.
More than 7 million of Ukrainians are now migrant workers in European Union and Russia.
Социальные болезни более 530 тысяч, которые распространены были и не лечились.
530,000 of Ukrainians are ill with so-called social diseases, tuberculosis and others.
В одном только Киеве, по официальным данным, находилось более 1 миллиона детей.
Yes, and for you to feel more than 1 million children inside Kiev, for example.
Социальный протест, он рано или поздно он бы был.
Yes, and some social protests sooner or later should happen.
И именно таким путем разжигания ненависти Востока к Западу,
and in this way of heating up this hostage between the East and West,
был разделен единый народ